Welcome everybody. This is UNO Veterinary Services. You probably know where it is, but sometimes people don't know where to go if they have issues with their horses. So we wanted to start out here and show you the sign that says grooming. We're not going to groom your horse, but we will take care of it in the open door just beyond that. If you need to be seen, that's our horse room. Today we're going to be talking about a couple things that are really important for horse health. One of our, prime mission statements is to bless people's lives by the way that we take care of their animals through the medicine that we provide and through excellent communication. So we're trying to do two of those things tonight. Talk about the medicine we provide and communicate some of those things to you so you understand what all goes into it. One of the most common, actually the most common cause of death in horses is actually colic. And it's the second most expensive disease that the horse industry deals with, second only to laminitis. And so it's a real important thing, and it's multifactorial. There's so many things that go into it to cause a horse to colic. One thing I often get asked is, well, what is colic? And people have different perceptions of what that is. Essentially, colic just means abdominal pain. But there's so many different kinds of colic that what we do when we see a horse that's here for colic is we try to differentiate those things and decide how critical it is. We have a few tests we can run to decide if they're going to do well in surgery or if we can manage those things medically. Gas colic is really common. It's just a gas distension of the GI tract. Sand colic isn't as common as our area as you'd expect. But I did, when I was practicing in Arizona, had a lot of clients who would put their horses on psyllium and leave them on there for quite a while to help them to bind up the sand in their system and get it out of there. Enteritis is a kind of colic that has to do with the small intestine. It causes lots of times bloat and distension of the small intestine. Impaction colic is probably the most common one we see between that and distension or displacement or entrapment. Impaction colics are the type like a constipation or something you just can't move through the system. And we're going to talk a little bit about some reasons why that could happen tonight. Displacement means that just like it sounds, it's displaced into some place where it's not supposed to be, or it can get displaced and get entrapped, like between the spleen and the kidney. The colon can move all sorts of places, and we're going to try to do our best to show you. We'll show you some pictures of that, of the colon, and why it's so easy for it to get displaced. And the one that there's more kinds, but these are the main ones we deal with. There's also a strangulation colic, or a torsion, and those ones are the most serious ones, the ones that have to go to surgery. Anyway, we're going to walk back here and we'll go into the horse room and take a look at some examples. So this is the horse room. We'll guide you back into here when you come. There is a sign on the door, but oh my goodness, there's a horse in here. Must be the horse room. So this is Uncle Rico. He's a 22-year-old teen roping horse. He does pretty well with kids. We just got him in here to help show some examples of what we're talking about. I wanted to show, this is my handy dandy anatomy book. Maybe I'll just set it there so I'm not moving. So this is an example of how complicated the equine GI tract is. We come from the stomach here, go through this circuitous route all the way to the anus. But there's so much packed in there, and these tissues are so heavy and so wet when they're in there that it doesn't take a whole lot. Like I said, impactions are really common, displacements are really common, but there's some things that are unique to the horse that make it so they're predisposed to colic. One thing is the size of the cecum. This kind of shows the cecum by itself. Horses are hindgut fermenters. So whereas a cow would have a big rumen to help break down the grasses in its system, horses have the cecum. But they also have a really small stomach. It's in here. You can't even see it in here. It's actually up underneath the diaphragm right here. Small stomach, large cecum, hindgut fermentation, and really nothing is in any specific spot except for this guy right here. That's called the pelvic flexure. It goes up in the left flank. And doing colic surgeries, when I was in school, if you were to put a horse back together, you made sure that was in the flank, and everything else just went in. So it's easy for these things to get displaced, to get jumbled around, to get upset, to get filled full of gas, and have some pain associated with it. I want to introduce you to another one of my friends. This is Bocephus. Hank Jr., we call him for short. He didn't make it, in case you couldn't tell. But I just wanted to show you some anatomy. What we're going to be talking about tonight is how dental floating plays a role in preventing colic. And so with all those types of colic, that's some scary things, but there are some things we can do to prevent that. Now he's lost a few, but the incisors are right here. Right here, these big holes are for the canine teeth. And often people mistake those for the wolf teeth. Wolf teeth will sit right here against the first premolars. Premolars and the molars in a horse are very similar. It's hard to differentiate them, but the wolf teeth in geldings especially, every once in a while in a mare, you'll find these little sharp teeth right here that are poking out, and they could be causing problems if your horse is throwing his head or not taking the bit. In fact, you can see one right there. Old Bocephus here still has a little wolf tooth right there. Canine, there's a big gap, and then the wolf teeth. So that's a common misconception. Some of the things I wanted to show you. Floating, the official name is occlusal equilibration. And all that means is we're going to take, I wish I had the bottom jaw to show you, but we're going to take the teeth, the edges of these teeth where they're sticking out, and they'll develop sharp points. Horses are herbivores and their teeth grow continuously. So as they grow, they're going to get some sharp points as they're rubbing along here, along the outsides of these teeth, and on the insides on the bottom jaw. It's just the way that they're shaped on this 15-degree angle right there. And so what we do is we try to take these sharp points down, and that way we don't have calluses that form on the inside of the cheeks, and that'll cause them to resist wanting to chew. So their food can either not be broken down well enough, or they'll start losing weight. Lots of problems that come with that. But the thing we're worried about tonight as we're talking is the fact that as the food isn't broken down enough, then it doesn't have a chance to be digested very well in the stomach. And then it passes on to all this mess of intestines I showed you, and can cause impactions. So one way that I've tried to help clients understand what happens when they're not chewing their food well enough is you can go and pick up a horse turd. I don't have one at the moment to show you. I could find one if you want. But I think of it kind of like pixie sticks. When I was a kid and I'd go trick-or-treating, I get pixie sticks. And when I was really young, I'd try to just rip one end off and try to suck it out of there. The sugar would get stuck about this far into the pixie stick, and I'd get frustrated and I'd have to tear it off again. Horses work kind of the same way. Horses only digest into their feed about 3/8 of an inch. So if you have a stem in your horse turd that's over 3/8 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch long, they're not getting that feed. So for example, sorry I didn't break that very well. Say that's your 3/4 of an inch stem you find inside. I don't know if you can focus on that very good. If that's your 3/4 of an inch stem you find inside your feces, the horse can digest in 3/8 that way and 3/8 from that end. So they're getting everything they need, even though this outer part isn't digested. All the soft, nutritious material on the inside they've gotten. If your stem in your feces is 1.5 inches long, then all you get is 3/8 of an inch here, 3/8 of an inch here. You have 3/4 of an inch in the middle that they're not getting. So what that means is you are literally wasting half of the food that you're giving your horse. And that is frustrating with hay prices nowadays, but it also means that they're not getting the nutrition they need, even though you're pouring the hay to them. And lots of that, it just comes down to the fact that those teeth aren't connecting and grinding in this figure-8 motion that they need to do to be able to cause that lignin on the outside of the stems to break down, and then they can extract that feed material out of it. So when we float horses, we sedate them. This has kind of a little pain reliever, uses a sedative, and then an actual sedative that we're going to give together. It helps him to relax and also to allow me to get everything I need to in the back of the mouth. It's really hard to get what's called ramps. There's hooks in the front that come up. I don't have a very good example on here. We'll look in his mouth and see if he's got hooks or ramps. Hooks come up on the bottom and the front. Ramps come down on the top and the back. And if he's got either of those, there's a good chance that he's not getting the full benefit from the power stroke, we call it, that figure-8 motion as he's trying to chew. And so to be able to get all that completely, we got to sedate him and to do a really good job on the back of the mouth especially. So he's sedated now. This is a mouth speculum. It allows me to get in there and get a really good look at those teeth. Okay, so with my handy dandy light here, and I try to flush out the hay and any feed material out of their teeth so we can get a cleaner view of what's going on. We'll try to give you a view here as we get going. So use this dental halter to pick up their head so that we can give my arms a rest, my shoulders. If you want to come look over my shoulder, you see it? So what we've got on here is sharp points. He's got a little bit of what's called a wave mouth, and if you saw on Bocephus over there, there was a drawing on the molars where it shows how about halfway back you can see how the teeth are. Easy bud, easy bud. Oh. About halfway back, you can see how the teeth are going up. They have a wave to them. That's what we call a wave mouth. He doesn't really have. He's starting a little bit of a hook right there. We talked about hooks and ramps. He's got just little teeny hooks right here, and he's got barely any ramps in the back. They're a little bigger in the back. He may have been done. May have been done without sedation because the ramps in the back are a lot bigger than the hooks in the front. A little bit of wave mouth, fairly common for his age. And his teeth are wearing really well for his age. I have an idea that these probably hurt him a little bit. I don't know if you can see these brown spots right here. Those are calluses on the inside of the mouth where he's tore up his cheeks and they filled in with scar tissue, and where he's bit the inside of his mouth before. But for his age, that's actually a really good mouth. So my main tool in all of this is a power float, but I do have several others. This is used for pulling teeth that are being a little stubborn, and I got several files that I'll use they all have different purposes to help to get these teeth back in line, make sure that he has the best experience he can, and we're going to reduce our chance of colic. There was a study done in 2014 saying that they looked at 144 polo horses, found out that 74 of them had, they had two groups, 74 of them had colicked in the past, 70 of them had never colicked. And then they looked at their teeth, and they found that of the 74 who had colicked, 50%, almost 51%, had bad teeth, one way or another. Hooks, rams, wave mouth, sometimes sheer mouth was almost like a pair of scissors on one side. And of the 70 horses that didn't ever colic, only 20% of them, 20.8% of them had bad teeth. So correlation, yes. Can we say that that's everything? No. There's a lot of things in a horse's environment, in their lifestyle that can cause colic, but we want to reduce what we can reduce, take care of what we can take care of, and that's why we float. A little more on that rams. Like I said, the rams in these back teeth are bigger than the hooks on the front teeth, but I still can't take a whole lot off because it'll kill the tooth. All right, so we've done all four arcades, all four sets of molars, premolars, and I put most of what's called a bit seat on there. Not all horses need it, but performance horses do a lot better with it. One thing I'm gonna do is just touch up these bottom. Oh, buddy. Touch up these bottom. Front premolars. Make sure that that bit seat settles in. All it is a spot where the bit can rest evenly on all four of the first premolar teeth, and it gives it a chance to pull evenly. Sometimes if horses resist the bit, they will need more work done on their first set of premolars. And I can kind of show you why on Bocephus over here, even though he doesn't have hooks, I want you to think about, so this line is just showing a wave mouth, and usually we have just the opposite going on right there. We've got a large tooth that sits down right here. Think of it like a hook. You know, it's described as a hook. That's exactly what it looks like. You've got the tooth that comes up like this and then just wings down, and I've seen them this big. I've seen some huge hooks, monster hooks on some of these horses. And if you think about the way that the physics of it all, you put a bit in here, you pull back on that bit and it pushes up. You can see that root on Bocephus here. You pull back on the edge of that tooth, it's going to push that root forward into that bone and into the sensitive tissues of the gums that are right here, and it's going to hurt a lot. And so it makes sense why some of these horses really pull back on the bit, really fight it and try to pull it out of your hands when you're riding them and you're just trying to get them to stop, even as being real nice and gentle. They just start pulling. They start pulling that out of your hands because it hurts. Anyway, floating has a lot of benefits for these guys. Like I said, it is multifactorial if we're trying to think about colic. Just some tips on preventing colic, grass is great. You know, alfalfa is fine. I like grass hay for my own horses unless they're really going hard, roping a lot, doing a lot of trail rides, things like that. You got to match their feed to their lifestyle. You don't want to have too hot. Like if they're just constantly on grain and alfalfa, it can make their digestive system overactive, and that can cause colic as well. Nutrition is important, making sure you have the right balance in there. Lifestyle or enrichment is good. If a horse is stuck in a stall, we got to give them things to do, whether they play with the bouncy ball or whether they have toys, things to play with, because their natural tendency is to go out and put their head down and graze grass. And so if they're in a stall, sometimes that can make them more predisposed to colic as well. One of the biggest things I see is dehydration. Dehydration always is a factor when I see an impaction colic. Sometimes it's in the winter when the water freezes over, or the heater in the watering trough has a little stray voltage and it shocks them every time they stick their nose in it. Sometimes it's in the summer when they're working hard, sweating a ton. Horse sweat is really rich in electrolytes. That means it's out of the body, and that needs to be replaced. They need water and salt to get over that, to get it back together. Exercise. We've heard a lot about tying up. You may have heard about tying up. After horses exercise, you got to give them a chance to cool down. Otherwise, that blood flow that's pumping through that GI tract, if it suddenly stops, they can have spots that aren't perfused enough, and they'll tie up. They'll have problems where that blood flow just doesn't keep things moving through, doesn't cause those muscle contractions to push things through the line, and they get really sick in a hurry. We just want to thank everybody for coming, tuning in, and joining us as we talk about some important topics for your horse to keep them healthy. We want to prevent colic every chance we get. Some things are not preventable, but lots of them are. There's things that we can do to make sure that their teeth are good to go, that they're grinding up those stems in their hay, that they have an opportunity to cool down after they exercise, that they get their teeth floated or at least checked yearly by a veterinarian. We have an opportunity to look through. I've actually found almost every summer, at the end of the summer, I find horses with liver problems that help from some supplementation, things that's going to help their liver put out the digestive enzymes that are needed to break down those foods once even if they're chewing great. There's things that we can pick up on our physical exam that's going to help them in the long run to live a long, healthy, pain-free life. Reach out to our clinic if you need an appointment. 435-722-9066 is our phone number, and we're happy to look at all the horses we can. We enjoy it. We love it. All 4 of our doctors here really enjoy working on horses, and we'd love to see you next time you're around. Please subscribe for more videos to this YouTube channel, and we'll keep putting out some more that hopefully help you. And if you remember that they're there, you can pull them up in a time of need, and we'd love to be there for you any way we can. Anyway, I'm Dr. Gamble. Thanks for joining us.